Hello, HelSec. My name is Silke Holtmanns. I work for Adaptive Mobile Security, and I will talk today about what is 5G security. I've been working 20 years roughly now in telecommunication security. And first I will tell a bit about Adaptive Mobile because it's a very small company, and so I stole from marketing with proud the following slides. So basically, what we are doing, we are building firewalls and message protection for operators, for mobile operators. And we actually protect billions of people worldwide. And we also do threat analysis of real attacks against operators. So this is sort of directly linking to the talk before. Now it's just a different environment. This is not the sort of internet style threat analysis, but telecommunications threat analysis that we do. So a bit about the company. No. So a bit about the company. They are 16 years old, roughly 150 people, not very big. I'm officially located in Dublin, Ireland. So Cloughcallow is now a suburb of Dublin. So I added the dot here for this one. So the head count in Finland is 1. That's me. And we have R&D centers in India and Dublin and other locations. So, and of course we have the sales all over the world because we very close to the customers, and some customers also, they want to have on-site analysis. They don't want to basically hand out the data. So we are a very specialized company, and that's also why I joined it recently. I joined the company in this year in spring, in the middle of the Corona crisis. I haven't been to the office yet, so and because I wanted to see the real attack traffic. Beforehand, I've been working for big network vendors, and I wanted to get a bit more hands-on on the things. So that's why I joined them. 5G in Finland, let's start with that one. What's 5G? Let's start with that. So here you see from Telia, from Elisa, and from DNA, the first 5G networks. Now you need to know something, and 5G is not 5G. 5G, what you basically is rolled out right now, it's really the antennas. So it's not the back end, and all those nice and fancy use cases like health, ultra reliable, and so on. So round trip times and so on. It requires also a corresponding back end. So, but if you hear 5G in the moment, it means mostly, and for most operators, really the antennas. So you get a bit of more bandwidth. Well, not just a bit more, but quite a good chunk more bandwidth. But it's not doing the whole job. So if you want really to go into all those nice fancy use cases, you really need also the corresponding back end to run it properly. So 5G in the moment means 5G antennas or radio access network. So let's go into, sorry, my laptop was a bit slow and I clicked twice. So what are the key elements in the mobile network? So we have the user, looks familiar. Then we have a phone or some machine, even cars. You know, all your cars are actually all newer cars have SIM cards in it or embedded SIM cards in it because of the emergency EU call directive. Then we have antennas. Then we have the so-called backend or core network, and then we have roaming partners, SMS providers. When you get to your dentist reminder, these are SMS providers. Then we have carriers, which really provide the transport service for operators. And some of the operators actually have a separate carrier business. And then we have what I call here global corporations. Actually, all operators in Finland are part of a bigger family, let's call it that way. And what I mean with that, for example, that Elisa has not only Elisa Finland, but also Elisa Estonia. Telia is not only in Finland, they're also in Sweden. And DNA is now part of Telenor, so they are also part of a bigger family, which is an important point, and which I will come back later to on. So stingrays. So I will mostly talk about the back end, because stingrays and radio interception, you see that one quite often in the news and so on. But to be fair, the air interface security, 3GPP, that's the standardization body who's doing these kind of standards for mobile network, they did a pretty good job on the air interface. So getting into the air interface is actually quite hard. The biggest risk there comes from bidding down, which means you pretend to be an old network antenna that only can speak, let's say, the old 2G and nothing more. But then the user actually can see or can have an app on his phone, which notifies him. So, and the quality gets also pretty bad. Stingrays are actually cheap. I mean, including laptop, we talk about €1,500. But they're not so easy to run, actually. If you really target a specific user and don't want to block basically everybody in the neighborhood, it's not that trivial, actually. So, and if you just sort of want to see if somebody's in a cell or not, that's reasonably easy. But if you want to do a bit more complicated things, like I said, just targeting one easy person and following it, it's a bit more difficult. One major constraint is that you have to be very close to the target, which means I will talk today mainly about nation-state sponsored surveillance. That means that though you need to send somebody who travels somewhere, waiting for the target and move with the target. So basically, in terms of OPEX, that's expensive. So you need to have passports, you need to have travel expenses and so on. So that's why surveillance companies focus much more on the back end, because there you get basically the same information, but you don't have to send somebody physical to some place. And so so much for stingrays and radio interception. So here we have deployment types. This is the sort of standardized deployment vision, and basically I will explain it to sort of some high level. And the first one then is called non-standalone. This is what we see nowadays. So you have a phone, you have the LTE 4G antennas. That's a little cloud, left cloud there. And you have then the 4G core network. So, and the green little cloud there with new radio, which means that the 5G antenna is a sort of subordinate to the 4G antenna. So it's somehow plugged next to the 4G antenna and it's using a 4G backend. That's actually what you see most in the most 5G rollouts today. I mean, of course, the final vision is that you have a 5G backend and only new radio, 5G radio, but this stuff is expensive. So what this means is that we will see many sort of weird or less weird migration scenario with half a 4G core and half a 5G core, some antennas here and some antennas there. So we'll see a mix and match of technology. And it's also that not only the return of investment is a point. I mean, having a very tight, let's say, 5G network in LAPI is a quite expensive exercise, but it's also about interoperability with partners. So in short, we will see sort of weird combinations of 4G cores with 5G cores and 4G antennas with 5G antennas. So we will see all kinds of weird stuff. So the reality will be somewhere here around that. So where you have both cores and both radios living somewhere. So what are the 5G risks? You might have noted that there are some people who have some sort of very weird understanding of 5G, at least in my book. So they started to burn various towers in several countries because they thought that leads to corona. So much for knowledge, wisdom, and information. And well, that's actually not one of the 5G risks. And if you then go to the politics and ask what their 5G risk is, it's a different one. And 5G has actually become a political playground, which is sort of somewhat, it has some good effects in the sense that people start paying attention to mobile communication networks, which are critical infrastructure. But on the other hand, most of the time they focus on a very small and narrow attack scenario, while 5G security is a much bigger story. And I'm going to tell you a bit today about 5G in general. So let's keep calm and think about security. And well, let's start thinking. It doesn't want to think. Okay, the large 5G security picture. Let's start with it. I mean, most of you are probably from the IT security side. So when you think about security, what does it mean for you? We have first the very elementary things of building and site security, which really means sort of doors and things like that. And for a mobile network, that, for example, means that how are the base station sites secured? I mean, you know, probably some base station in your local forest somewhere, not far away. I can see actually one from here from my window. So how is it actually secured? In Finland, many base station sites are actually shared. How are they secured? How much do the employees know about security? And I mean, this was also stressed by my previous presenter. Have they been trained? Have there been drills? What's also important, how you handle your employees, accounts, access, control, and things like that. And this actually also goes in tightly with HR processes. When somebody leaves the company, you have to close the accounts and things like that. Incident response plans, very important, and business continuity plans. What do you do if something goes wrong? Because sooner or later, some oops will happen. So, and for mobile network, also power supplies are important and backups. How long, if you have a storm and the base station electricity goes down, how long can you keep up the service? So, and then we come to the topic, what do you buy? Hardened product, there is something called NISAS, which is to improve the software quality of mobile network nodes. You can buy certified products. You can include also hardware, secure hardware elements in the product. We will have, after this talk, we will talk about secure hardware and how this can support the security of the elements. When you buy something, are updates and security updates included, or do we have to pay extra for them? Are there any updates? When is the end of the support? Do you have vendor lock-in? Do you have, do you know what supplier procedures they have? Open source? How does it work? What's the quality in general of the source code? That's also very important for operators. So this, in the moment, what do you buy is mostly on manufacturers or vendor side, like the big ones, Ericsson, Huawei, Nokia. So, but how you operate is more on the operator side, like Elisa, Telia, and DNA. So how do you monitor your traffic? On which levels, which protocols, which interfaces? Do you look actually at the threats? Do you analyze them, or do you ignore them when they don't cause any sort of obvious hiccups? Very dangerous topic, configuration in 5G. 5G is extremely complex. Whoever has been thinking that 2 and 3 and 4G is complex hasn't seen 5G yet. So, and I've seen them all. So pen testing, there exists pen testing also for telco networks. Well, at least you can do the low level thing and check on Shodan if some of the nodes and ports are open. Audits, also some will help. Lawful interception, how's the lawful interception interface secured? It's a good question. You don't want a lawful interception interface to be hacked. Then partners, it's an extremely important topic because partners have, Operators have partners, like this SMS provider who sends you the dentist reminder. They have subsidiaries, like I explained, Telenor and DNA. There are cloud service providers where they have virtual nodes and host them there. They have carrier services. They have roaming partners. So there are all kinds of partners, and also they sell access to their networks to, I don't know, fleet management or industrial 4.0 or whatever. And the point is there, sort of how trustworthy are those guys, how those partners? How much access do you allow them? Do you check what they are doing? So this is basically how you operate. And then it comes to, this goes, you give people access, sort of externals, you give access. How do you protect? So that's the next topic. So across legal borders, do you have security zones across the generation of technology between 2G and 4G, so that you have an attack in one part of the network, it doesn't sort of swap over in the other network? Do you cover really all protocols, or you do have blind spots? Do you have access control tools internally? And what are the partners doing? And also, again, checking what's actually happening in your network. So surface-based architecture. I'm not going to dwell too much into those boxes. Don't worry. So basically, I try to explain to you now the main difference between the old network style and the new network style. So 4G and 5G. And 4G, you have dedicated interfaces which need to be switched on. So if you have one box and it wants to talk to another box, you need to have an explicit interface switched on. So then those two boxes can talk to each other. So in 5G, this is slightly different. We have a so-called service-based architecture. And guess what it's using? It's using REST API and HTTP2. Sounds familiar? So in each function there can send to each other function messages. Of course, there's something called an authorization function, that's the NRF, which sort of should check that everything is going properly. But as said, this thing is extremely complex. So, which means there's a risk that some node might send to just any other node any type of messages, for example, location retrieval. The idea was to have a very flexible and extensible model which can be serving a lot of use cases, which it does. So, but on the other hand, you need to have a very tight control on who is doing what there. As warned, complexity and configuration. 5G is extremely complex. There are thousands of information elements. And here's a nice example, which I sort of stumbled on Shodan, that China Unicom. They are the second largest Chinese operator. And they happen to have their database online. And guess what has happened? They got ransomware on it. So you don't want ransomware in a mobile network, because that means you pay or you lose your customer. So you pay one way or the other. So I don't know which database was actually behind that, but most telecommunication nodes are actually just big databases. So why is 5G core network interesting? We have for roaming, we have 3,500 legitimate information elements for REST API alone. I reviewed them, 3,500 by hand, believe me. And they are easily readable, like these ones here. These are very typical ones. So this is actually here, these are base station IDs, most of them here that you see here. This G node B value, that's the base station ID. That next one is an interworking function. Next generation node B, and new radio cell ID, and tracking area. So you have these kind of easily understandable abbreviations, telco love abbreviation. And here we also have key material. So what you need to do is basically you need to read all those information elements and make sense out of them. So, and they are going via REST API and JSON. That means if you don't know what's behind them, you don't know how to properly protect them, because you don't know if they should be accessible, let's say by a internet by a service provider in the middle or not. So who should be allowed to see that value but not the next value? So access control is really difficult, because to protect really user data, you need to know what those elements mean. So it makes it a bit tricky. So one thing that's we are also struggling now more and more with is that the attackers are very fast to react. For example, we did in our company, Mobile, we did this when there was this COVID starting, a spammer analysis, how fast they were sort of picking up this situation and try to adjust their spam accordingly. And these are examples of SMS spam, real. And you can see that basically beginning of March, the figure was just shooting up. And so they were very fast adapting their approach for. They created websites which looked really like these, let's say, these websites where you can get this kind of support money for your business and things like that. And websites which sold fake websites which claim to be selling masks and all kind of things. So they were really fast. So the reaction time is getting shorter and shorter. Now, this was now the spammers, which are sort of more the internet style of attack, even if they use SMS. But these SMS are getting somehow into the network. There's nobody on a phone and writing each individual SMS. So somehow these SMS get into the network from some service provider somewhere on the road. Now about surveillance companies. This is an analysis from SimJacker, it's called. It's a very sophisticated attack, which was basically sending a message to the UICC, that's your SIM card, to extract location data. And what we saw was that the attackers in general use all kinds of protocols. They use SMS, they use SS7. SS7 is the protocol which is mostly used when you are roaming to set up a call, to update you location, to authenticate you and things like that. That's SS7. Diameter is a newer version of it. Then there's GTP that's needed when you have data traffic. And these attackers, they use whatever fits. So if one protocol doesn't fit, they use another one. So they are very flexible in that sense. Also, we saw that the attack approaches, they vary quite a lot. So the coding format, the padding, the usage of the field and the features. So they really know what they are doing. And what is most important, which was at least for me for somehow a surprise, it's not a one-to-one attack in the sense that they have one target and it's coming from one address. No. They have so-called bases, and the sources of the attack vary widely. So they attack telco networks from a range of points, and also for the SimJacker, for example, the places where they extracted the information, they extracted it to a large range of addresses. So it's somehow they are really full-fledged platforms, but this means also that the breaches where they launch the attacks from are wider. So there are a lot of networks or services which are compromised and are used for their attacks. So here in short, so attackers' goals, most commonly it's location information general like IMSI, like the basically identifiers and so on. Fraud is also very popular, call interception, PIN interception if you have these kind of two-factor authentication. User denial of service is actually more rare. Data interception happens, spam very often, ransomware we didn't see so much. So that's more sort of on the you get a link and download it yourself. As said, attackers have a toolbox. 2G is very commonly used for attacks. So 3G, 4G, sometimes 5G. Well, as I said, there are no core networks yet deployed, so but I assume that attackers will just go with the technology. And also for all those vertical use case, Industry 4.0, smart city and connected cars, I suppose that the attackers will also see an attack vector somehow to sneak their way into that one. So some of them exist, some of them I'm pretty sure will just come at some point of time, because those guys, they go with technology. So where are those guys actually sitting from the architectural point of view, the surveillance companies and so on? So let's say on the left-hand side, we have here an operator. That's country A, that's Finland. We have now, he has a non-standalone architecture, which means he has 5G antennas, but the old backend still running, most common case. So then we have these IPX providers. This is a private network between operators, and that's used for roaming. And then we have, let's say, country B operator, let's say that's Sweden, that's the other subsidiary in Sweden. Then we have, let's say, still another operator, let's say Tele2 in Sweden, maybe they have just 2G or 3G, and so on. So, and these attackers, they sit somewhere on the right-hand side. And you don't know exactly where they are because there's no authentication there, you are not sure where the origin of the messages are. You might say from internet, if you're coming from IT security, how can that be that you don't have proper, you don't know where the messages are coming from? I come to that why it's so. So here's some IP partners. Palau Telecom is a small Pacific operator. Actually, I wanted to show you Tuvalu Telecom, but my website didn't allow me to connect to it, my browser, because it was TV, and that's bad. Well, they have something like 17,000 subscribers. Then we have a big one like China Mobile. They have about 500,000 employees and I think 902 million subscriber. Then we have Cineverse. Most of you probably have never heard of that company. It's a huge one. They provide a lot of carrier data transfer services. And then we have companies like Telenor and also other, which do these kind of roaming networks themselves. So these are just to give you some idea who is in this ecosystem. It's something most people aren't aware of, and it's a very mixed one. So we have very small ones and very big ones, and they are all in the same network. So why is it so hard to secure it properly? Well, let's start with that. It's a grown structure. You know, that's always bad, grown structures. So they started with no security because everybody was nice and everybody was sort of governmental owned and they trusted it. And now they turned into very, very complex networks. And there are no pure networks in terms of technology. So the networks are all a mix and match of technologies and vendors and so on. Also corporations buy other corporation, and by that they get even more weird configuration. So it's a very, very old grown structure and there's no security in it. There are some security approaches, but this then hits the wall with backward compatibility and also sort of the key question, who pays? I mean, you have two operators and you have in the middle the IPX providers. So let's say if you want to send a message, let's say from Finland to US, and then you for sure have some IPX providers in the middle that route nicely your message to ship your message from A to B. And the thing is, if you want to have security between US and Finland, those guys in the middle, they need to play along. And as you say in risk management, but they don't own the asset, so they couldn't care less. So there's no damage for them. So that's one problem, that attackers rarely break things. So if you do location tracking, you don't break anything. You just get a message out and saying, hey, the guy is in that cell, but you don't break anything. So the damage is, most cases, not financial. That means what's the point investing money in it, especially since this stuff is expensive. Then we have the political arguments. if you want to have security on it, you need probably some form of PKI. But then who is trusted enough? As I said, everybody is connected to it, to this network. We have China, we have US, we have Russia, we have Finland, we have Germany, we have Pakistan, we have India, we have Taiwan, even North Korea. So they're all in. So, and of course you can go, this logo here, I don't know how many recognize, that's the Banco Vaticano, maybe that one. Then those guys are trusted enough to run the PKI for the system. But I don't think so. So there's also the local constraint, I would call that. Some governments say no to security. So it happens. So what do you do then? And there's some governments who just say no. That's it. So who has a root certificate? Who is trusted? So this is just to give you an idea how complex this stuff is. This is here a roaming scenario. Don't be too afraid. I just give you the high level idea. Left-hand side, you have 4G. That's the network. There are two networks. On top, you have your home network where you are, and on the bottom, you have the visited network, let's say Sweden. And the Swedish guys have a mix of 4G and 5G. Well, which means that the Finnish network, the home network, would need to support somehow both. So they would have these kind of combined nodes to support when you in Sweden moving from a 4G cell to a 5G cell. The network here would basically, and you have a data session running, then all these kind of nodes would be talking to each other. And in the middle, you see this diameter firewall on the left-hand side with a little flame. That would be for 4G traffic, to protect your 4G control traffic. Then you have GTPC, that is for data communication, the control traffic. Then you have user plane protection in the middle, which would be sort of malware and these kind of botnet stuff. And then on the right-hand side, basically, you have the 5G firewalls, which are somewhat, they are not actually three because you can virtualize them and can have them native cloud-based, which makes life a bit easier. But this is just one migration scenario, and it's actually not even the most complex one. It's sort of pretty low-hanging, actually. So, and it's not even 2G in the stew, and this is all pretty straightforward, actually. So you get an idea of the complexity for this kind of migration and combination, and all these needs to be configured, all these interfaces, each protocol. So to make it even more interesting, remember all those nice fancy use cases, these connected cars and so on. Industry 4.0, and you can have a soccer stadium, and then you have an application where to see you the view of where you have the names of the players immediately and all their scoring history and whatever. And for that, these applications have to connect to the core network, to the mobile core network. For this, there are REST APIs there, and here I list some bunch of them. And actually, it's opening up the network. It's opening up the mobile core network. And here, it's basically how that roughly works. On the left-hand side, you have an operator, a mobile operator with his 5G core network, whatever. The yellow box in the middle is the industrial partners. That could be, let's say here an entertainment arena. And then basically you have this soccer stadium or ice hockey. And as soon as you're on an ice hockey stadium, you can get immediately the full screen on full view on everything, on every player. So this industrial partner would be the soccer arena or the ice hockey arena, and they would have application providers. So these application providers, they would register with them saying, hey, I have these, that the user can get coupons for the Hesburger in the stadium, but I need to know if these guys are really in the stadium. And the arena partner says, yep, okay, you can use our API for it and request the location of the user. And what this nasty guy is actually doing, he doesn't give out Hesburger coupons. No, 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 no. He is getting all the locations he can get from the network. And the question is how to stop that. And that's actually part of my research that I'm actually doing, sort of how can you stop these kind of data pumping from the network, from an industrial partner. And it's also actually both two-way protection. So this is one of the risks that we have for here. Now you see the red node where the bad guy contacts the location API, then gets out of the network, the AMF stores the location, so we can pull out the information out of that one. So, and that's a question sort of how to protect against these kind of attacks. So security, local versus global, as said. So to the east here you have Mordor, what a coincidence. And to the south we have Gondor, and to the top we have Rohan. Let's assume that Rohan and Gondor are two operators and they share some sort of pieces of infrastructure because it's cheaper. But they have both their own firewall. So these green lines should be a firewall against Mordor. But Mordor is not stupid. So they noted that this firewall on the bottom has a hole. So they just make a little detour and attack Rohan via Gondor. So what this means is that if you have a joint infrastructure, which has several external contacting points, you need to be sure that A, really all external contact points are really good. And secondly, you might want to have in between a firewall so that you don't get something on the sort of through the backdoor. A very typical example is that when you have a country and roaming, and you also have what's called national link, which means when I call my daughter and she's with another operator, then this is going over the national link, it's called. When I'm abroad, this would come over the international link. So in some countries, the operators say, hey, I only filter stuff which comes over the international link because the national link is, of course, everything here is okay. And what happens then, that the attacker look, oh, let's see who's the weakest operator in the country. Let's break into that one and then basically from there attack the others. It's the same strategy. So if you share infrastructure, you need to be aware that attackers don't mind making a little detour just to get to the target. So then you ask, okay, what's done to protect me? EU is setting up some sort of framework, toolbox it's called, for protecting people for 5G, and it's actually quite good. I'm pushing there. I'm part of the advisory board for the EU, and it's coming. And it has to be seen sort of what will be mandated and what's just guideline. In the US, the Federal Communication Commission, they are a bit reluctant or not. They're not very keen on regulating. They are more encouraging guidelines for operators. This is partially political. Let's see how that's going in the future. And then we have countries like Singapore who just say, hey, that has to be done that way. And so it will be done that way. And then we have countries like UK on the bottom there, we just say we don't want Huawei and that's it. So that's also an approach, but that only covers a very small risk scenario. But actually UK has very capable people on telco security, just to be fair. But if you close one way, attackers find another way. I mean, this is here quite interesting because the left one is from January, and the other one, the right hand from BBC, is from yesterday. So, I mean, you start wondering. At least I'm not sure about you, but okay, if these attackers they just say okay, they cannot do this. Okay, then comes this. So how effectful some of the measures are that people come up with. for some weird attack scenarios. Conclusion. 5G, many opportunities, but also new risks. Attackers use different technologies to obtain the goals. So they use all kinds of protocols and configuration tricks. If one attack doesn't work, they just go to the next. Security zoning is very important. And that's something which telco, I think, still has to learn a lot from enterprise security. Not just one protocol. That's not enough because the attackers will just move to the next one. But you can do a bit of look at one protocol, and if you see an attack there, you're aware that something is coming up, and have then the blocking list ready for the next protocol. So there are tricks you can do which improves a bit of efficiency. You need to take into account migration scenarios. We will stuck with legacy nodes for quite a while. So yeah, so you have to think about them. And most important, look at your traffic. If you cannot do it, ask somebody who knows how to look at the traffic. So it's possible, but I've seen more than once people sort of, no, it's all okay and there are no problems. And once they start really looking, they sort of are surprised what they see. Find the threats, they are there. You just have to look. And actually nowadays there are also potential financial implications. If one operator launches an attack against another operator, even if their network has just been breached, there are responsibilities there. So this is something new, and I'm very happy about it because it puts a price tag on data breaches for them. So questions. Thank you. I hope it was somewhat interesting dive into telco security. So let's go.
All right. Thank you very much, Silke. We have few questions for you. So the first one is actually about the avatar in the 5G and mobile essentials. Sorry, key elements of the modern mobile network. The question is from Jaroneko. How essential is who is in a modern mobile network?
There are not that many telco vendors to be sort of, there's Huawei, there is Ericsson, there's Nokia, there's Samsung, and then there are sort of some which offer sort of some solution like Cisco and so on. So the thing is, if you just have two vendors, I mean, we know K market and we know city market. And then the competition is a bit sort of lame. Let's put it that way. And operators don't like that. So for many reasons. So price is of course one of them, but also that then the incentive to improve, it drops if you just have two partners. I mean, so it's just a fact of life. If you just have two companies competing with each other, then I suppose if you have more sort of aggressive competitors there and a bunch of them, then it improves the general quality of things. So it's, like I said, it's just with K and S, and suddenly we have Piste everywhere. So when Needle came, so
All right,
the same rules hold here.
Yeah. The second question is from Otter. The question is about running AIM SECD or Snoop Snitch for detecting IMSI catchers or stingrays. Is it any good?
Yes, it works.
All right.
You should go to Kulusari. It's a nice area.
Okay.
Or Eira. Very, very beautiful area, and suddenly you have 2G.
Okay.
Make a tour in downtown Helsinki just for the fun of it. Yeah.
How well do they work against actual bad actors?
I mean, the thing is that I mean, you can see some stuff, but the problem is it's very hard to differentiate if you, for example, have a misconfiguration in the network or if it's a real attack. So, but on the other hand, sometimes you get concrete hints in the sense that, let's say, I haven't detected any network anomalies here in Klaukala, But if you go, let's say, to some other areas where, for example, there are a lot of embassies or something like that, then and you see then some network anomalies, and I would say sort of, yeah. But as I said, sort of many of the data you can get from these, or most of the data you can actually get easier from the back end, in the sense that you don't need to send for somebody sort of in the rain in the car, you know, somebody waiting in the car, probably even is not allowed to park there or something. And the buggy party comes and gives you a ticket, and yeah. So,
right.
yeah.
All right, thank you. So the next question is about the the legacy technology.
Yeah.
How easy it is to defend against attacks relying on problems with old systems that may still need to be supported for a decade or more?
Yeah. That's on a low level, sort of the attacks have different levels, let's call it that way. There are levels of attacks which are extremely easy to block, but the surveillance companies, they know their job. There's no question about that. And they just then move to the next level. It's a cat and mouse game. And actually, I mean, even today I saw in our company that we adjusted the rules and fine-tuned something a bit, checked something. So it can be done. So you can also do all kinds of checks and suspiciousness activity. You can combine data, especially since we combine live threat data from different operators, and then we can see if one is under attack. We can pretty sure, okay, they go to attack the other end very soon also. So it works, but it's a cat and mouse game. Let's put it that way.
So this is like another questions for the same topic. What do you think? How do operators go about it? Are they
very different? So that's some just don't care, just to be plain.
right.
So there are operators that don't care, and there are operators which care quite a lot. So, and usually the ones that also offer additional security business, these are the ones that very often are very, very strongly invest in this area, because it's for them, it's a reputation loss in the security area also means they potentially use business customers. And that hurts. So as a general rule of thumb, so it varies widely. Sort of as I explained, some operators just have 1,300 customers. I don't think they have a security guy. So
yeah.
But on the other hand, the operator with 500,000 employees, I'm pretty sure they have a big security team. So they are very different. So let's put it that way. So.
All right, a few more questions about the vulnerabilities in 5G.
Yeah.
The vulnerabilities that have been found from 5G and other newer technologies, are they similar to the vulnerabilities found in older technologies?
The 4G radio access network attack that was recently published in spring somewhere by David Ruprecht, that was very similar. There was some integrity protection was not done properly by 3GPP, but they fixed it nowadays. So there are some stuff which is very similar, where you can have attacks that sort of follow the same logic, let's call it that way. But the usual trick is do your homework, do the configuration, do the authorization, and so on. But still, as said, on this IPX network, on the backend part, the parties are not fully authenticated, and there's always legacy support. So yeah.
All right, a few more questions, and these are actually about the IMSI catchers. Are those are those legal in Finland?
No.
And okay, and is there any use cases where they are legal?
The government, I think they are allowed to use them on a certain, but I'm not sure what the exact rules are in for that. And also, I suppose that some research institutes might have a special, or research area might have special permission to use them, because you can tune them very finely down to that they just work in a, let's say, in a meter or something. So you can tune them to this kind of, but they are per default, they are not allowed. So
yeah,
because they can also screw up, because you might catch somebody you must imagine that if you catch somebody with it because you just tune it up, those people might not be able to make an emergency call. That's something, because I mean, you might catch somebody on the street out there who's just having a car accident, and then this person cannot call the ambulance. So IMSI catches are a bit risky.
But have you seen or catched any IMC IMSI? What is the IMSI?
It works.
IMSI,
IMSI it's called.
Yeah, IMSI in Helsinki. Have you seen any of those or observed?
I used Snoop Snitch some while ago, a couple of years ago, and there are some other applications. We had them on our phone, and we made, let's say, a long walk in the embassy areas, and we noted some network anomalies there. But as said, sort of, it's very hard to detect if it's really a false base station, because they are not big. I mean, they look like a Wi-Fi router. So it's and then a laptop. I mean, you can have that in the trunk of the car. So without it, maybe that's not the best place. But anyway, so you wouldn't even see them. They are so small. So, but as I said, I saw network anomalies, but it's a big question if there were sort of real attacks or not. So happens. Also, I've been at DEF CON once, and there were false base stations there.
Okay.
Several of them. So.
All right. So that's well, that was not the surprise.
No. I didn't expect anything else. So
yeah, that's true. But thank you very much, Silke, for coming to HelSec, and we will now have a 10-minute break, and then we will continue with the last talk.
Okay. Thanks a lot. See you.